Good evening, everyone. Have some new faces here this evening. My name is Mike Freeman. I'm president of the Neighborhood Association. As I announce every meeting, when I took it 10 years ago, I didn't know it was a life appointment, but apparently it is. So I'm here for a while.
And that it should be.
Until somebody else loses their mind and decides to take the job. So not a lot going on right now. We got the 4th of July parade coming up. Our next meeting is we're going to have Sheriff Chody and Constable Vinny Jerome here to talk to us about, they were recently elected this past year. They're both new in their positions and going to come talk to us about some of their ideas and so forth going on. Vinny's our Precinct 1 constable. So if you remember, Vinny used to be with Round Rock Police Department, and Robert Chody was the constable. So kind of did a little step up there. But they'll be here to talk to us. We've got some really cool guests here tonight. These guys are going to talk tonight. These guys have probably forgotten more about the city of Round Rock than most people know. These guys are on top of all of it. So, any questions before we turn it over to them? Now, by the way, our 4th of July parade, anybody know what day that's on?
April 3rd.
I got a message the other day that says, what day is our 4th of July parade on? Really? Yes, it conflicts with the cities at 10. Ours starts at 9. We're usually done by 9:45. And then you can run over and see the cities real quick. Ours is better anyway. Don't worry about the cities. Who wants to go look at all those fire trucks and everything?
So is it at the church?
What's that?
Is it at Deepwood?
Same thing. Yeah. Start at Deepwood, come down Deepwood, go down to Walsh,
Yeah.
St. Williams over to Bluff, down to the park, and they'll have hot dogs and treats and stuff. So, all right. Anything else? Any other questions? Okay. Well, economic development. In Round Rock, we enjoy one of the lowest tax rates around, and a lot of other benefits, a lot of quality of life. I don't know if you guys pay attention to the number of top 10 lists we're on. We're just like on a countless number of top 10 lists for the best this, the best that, the most affordable, the best quality of life, best parks, best this, best that. And the reason we are is because of the good leadership we've had over the years, not only with the city government and city council and city management, but with the Round Rock Chamber of Commerce. And part of that is because there's been a strong partnership with the two over the years. Now, many of you may not have heard about the Momentum program, and the Momentum is where local businesses partner and contribute to a fund that helps with this economic development that comes in. And it runs in, what are we, 5-year campaigns? 5-year campaigns now. We used to be 3, but it's a 5-year campaign. And you have different levels that small businesses like me can commit to, and then you have the big guys like the Chascos and the so forth that contribute at the higher end levels. So, and that money all goes into a kitty and helps develop what these guys are going to talk to you about tonight. And they'll get into a little more detail about how that works and why it's important to what we have here in the quality of life and the low tax rate we have. So, who's going to go first? Ben? Sure. All right. I'll just. All right. We got this. We have Ben White, Brad Wiseman, and Mayor Craig Morgan's with us tonight. It's our first time with this one. Here you go. This little microphone. Just hang on to it. Oh, we're recording every word you say, so we.
I don't know if I want that. Good evening. Nice seeing you all. I want to talk just real briefly on the standpoint from the city side. I get asked quite often, why do we bring businesses and why do we give incentive to help bring companies to Round Rock, such as Dell, the Kalahari deal. And so let me give you a couple of reasons why we do that. Number one, if we don't, everybody is competing. We're not competing just against cities anymore in Texas. We're competing against states. And some states are just throwing massive amounts of dollars to these companies to come to their area. And so I'll give you an example. Dell. Dell's one of our biggest taxpayers in Round Rock. They pay more in property taxes than probably any other business. They're probably one of the top 10, if they're not number 1, than any other business in Round Rock. But they probably use some of the least amount of our services for what they pay in taxes. We as residents use way more in services, but pay much less in taxes because we have companies like Dell and Kalahari when they have these capital investments. What makes the Kalahari, since that's the most recent big announcement, what makes the Kalahari deal so good is that it also does a couple things, in that it continues to bring tourism to our city. So if I told you on our sports capital tourism, which we bring amateur sports to Round Rock, so they come, they shop, they eat, and then they leave, how much would you think, just take a wild guess, how much you think that saves on your, when I say annual tax bill, the city portion? Any guess? How much you think it saves you on your annual tax bill? For the average home price. So I think that was $240,000 was the median. Any guess?
I think we'll guess.
$800. So if we didn't have sports tourism, then we would have to find and make up that money or cut core services. Now, one of the things that we have been watching, so the tourism effort with Kalahari is now we're adding 200,000 square foot of convention space, which adds another tool to our toolbox to bring in more tourism to help try to manage and keep our tax rate at a manageable rate. As you all know, we're growing rapidly. We got a report today with regards to kind of the budget update and where we are heading. You know, as Mike said, we're the second, just till this year, we have the second lowest tax rate in Central Texas. We were first for about 3 years in a row. Georgetown finally passed us, but they have their own utility company, so they can move some money into general funds to help. They have a little bit of an advantage on us in that category. We should be somewhere pretty close. You know, we've issued most of the debt that had come out of the most recent bond. The thing that we are watching, and I've got to speak to several clubs, is we're watching the legislative session very closely. And so let me tell you a couple of bills we're watching. Senate Bill 2, the one that everybody has been hearing about, is to cap cities' growth. There's a rollback rate. It's $1.08 right now. School districts already have to follow it. If they hit the $1.08, they have to go to an automatic election for the vote. The proposal that they have is to go to $1.05. We've been at about 2 to 4%. It varies. I mean, I think this was the first year since I've been on it a while that we've gone over actually the 4% mark. And so let me tell you the impact of what Senate Bill 2 would have done to us if it would have been in place this year. So at 5%, we just hired 9 new police officers. They would have not been on the street. We wouldn't have been able to do it. We would have to delay maintenance of some neighborhood roads, which that's coming in y'all's neighborhood. And we'd have to delay the opening of the multi-purpose fields. Those have been the decisions we have to make. All right? The property savings under that bill for your city tax bill was going to be about $2.25 a month or $30 a year. So here's where the disingenuous state is coming in and saying, hey, we're going to save you, all you property taxpayers, relief. You can't talk about property tax relief until you address school finance. If school finance is not being addressed, you're not going to get true property tax relief. Do not let them Twitter you to death and misinform you that you're going to get true property tax relief. As the mayor, it's my job to tell you you're not going to get true property tax relief. We all want true property tax relief. You're not going to get it when you send so much money back to the state. And I'll give you an example of that. Austin ISD sends $400 million from a $1 billion budget back to the state. Plus they cut per student funding. And so it's just disingenuous to all the locals because they're attacking cities and counties on it right now to saying that we're out of control. So how that works on your tax rate, so everybody knows 2 components of the tax bill is the M&O, which deals with the rollback rate, maintenance and operation, and then debt. So what's going to happen in high growth areas like Round Rock, or what you're going to force their hand to do, is that you'll go to the rollback rate every year to try to keep up and cover all your ebbs and flows, and then you potentially could issue debt, which then you lose that $2.25 like that. And so it's just really disingenuous. So we're watching that bill very closely. As I told the council this morning, that what they will say is you can cover all your growth under new money from all the new development coming in. So I'll give you an example of that. $200 million of new property will hit the tax rolls projected roughly this coming year. That equates in dollars to the city, $500,000 in about a $100 million budget. That doesn't even pay for our police and fire for their benefits and stuff. That's an annual deal. The 9 new police officers, where it's $1 million to put them on the rolls. So it sounds really good when you hear $200 million, but it only brings you $500,000. So it works great in an area that's not growing, but in an area where you're growing, we really we struggle with that. And so as I told the council today, I'm willing to cut. All I need to be told is where to cut, because I do believe we run a pretty tight ship, and that's what the decisions will be forced on our citizens and us. Is what do we do? Do we make cuts, or do we just continue to try to get through it with 5% and look at where you issue the debt? The other bill, whether you agree, disagree, don't, the bathroom bill. We have already been contacted by several national sports tournaments that they will cancel coming to Round Rock if there is a bathroom bill passed. Again, my job is just to tell you what the impact will be. So that means tourism dollars out of the city, and then again, you have to find that funding. So that's another bill that we're watching very closely. Other than that, I think that, I'll let Ben really get into the Kalahari details. I think it's a great thing for the city. That was zoned to have we could have had over 1,500 single residential families there, which would have been another school that would have had to build. And, this is potentially a $300 to $500 million capital investment. So that spreads more money to allow us to try to keep our tax rate very manageable. And so economic development really is a very important thing. I wish we didn't have to give incentives. And we don't give a lot, in all honesty. I mean, we really have done really well on that. But for us to compete and to try to help us to maintain a low tax rate, we have to bring good jobs, and we have to bring the capital investment. So it's a very important relationship. It's really important to have the private sector involved so they have buy-in as well. These are businesses that are competing with some of these fellow businesses. I mean, we have some hoteliers that are on Momentum who are helping. They're supporting this. They understand the nature of bringing this type of business in. So anyway, and I kind of read a bunch of stuff. I just want you to know quickly what we're watching. Budget coming up. I think it's going to be, again, a very tight budget. We are going to hire 9 new firemen for the 3406. I don't know if y'all saw that, where we turned the house into, so we saved some money by not building a fire station. The next big thing I think a lot of people want to know what's going to happen is we are in some pretty good discussions right now figuring out where to put a new library. I think the thought is most of us want to keep it somewhere in the core of downtown. We've not had anybody I live on the east side of town. I haven't had anybody on the west side say, hey, why don't you move it over to the west side, east side, north side. It's all been pretty much, let's try to keep it in the core. And that's who, the decisions that use it the most. And we're trying to look at some partnerships with the school district. There was some misinformation during that bond that the school district, they were saying, people were saying that were against the bond, that the school district was building the library at the benefit of the city. City of Round Rock passed the bond to build a new library. What we're trying to do is figure out a partnership with the school district to allow them to use some of our resources and to kind of spread the tax dollar further amongst all the taxing jurisdictions. And we're getting big enough when those opportunities arise, we ought to do that. And as elected officials, if we're not looking for ways to do it, you ought to vote us out. Seriously. Now, there's some things we can't do, but there are clearly some things we can work together on. And I think this is one of those opportunities to really try to spread that across to more than just us taking it on, and working with the school district. So I'm gonna let Ben talk and Brad, and then if y'all have questions at the end, we'll be here to answer them all.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. My name is Ben White. I'm Vice President of Economic Development, and as Craig said, my office is at the Chamber of Commerce. They're on Main Street, right next to the public library. A couple years back, about 4 years ago, I was at a city council retreat. I was sitting in the audience because I'm not a city staffer, so I was sitting in the audience, and council was really putting out there, what is the next big thing for Round Rock? And we had the Dell Diamond, but what is that next big thing? What's going to be the next big thing that's going to come to Round Rock? City manager at the time, I think he threw out professional baseball. He got a lot of flack for that in the paper and in the news and everything. I didn't go that route. I was thinking, well, we don't really have a destination hotel, destination resort. And so we contacted Great Wolf Lodge. Everybody familiar with Great Wolf Lodge? You see the commercial all the time on TV. Thinking that'd be a great fit right up there next to Bass Pro Shops. Kind of fits right in there with Bass Pro Shops and the Outlet Mall. It'd be a great destination. Families would come in, spend their dollars. It'd be a great fit. We reached out to Great Wolf. We sent them a package. We contacted them. We had a phone conference with them, and they told me that they were not going to come to Round Rock. And I asked them why. And they said, well, we just believe you're too close to Dallas. We have one already. Now I get turned down a lot. In fact, my dating life prepared me for my job. So I'm used to being turned down, but for good reasons. To me, that was not a good reason. It just showed me that they were really from Wisconsin. They didn't understand Texas and the demographics and the growth. And so I spent 2 days in my office with the door shut researching who would be a great fit for Round Rock and who would be fit in this culture of family first, family friendly, and really be a good partner to us in this community. And we only reached out to one group, and that was Kalahari. And we sent Todd Nelson, who's the owner of Kalahari, a packet. Within 3 days of us sending that packet, his site selector reached out to me and said, hey, Round Rock doesn't really fit everything that we're looking for, but we'd like to come visit. So he came and visited the next week. He met with the current mayor, the past mayor, McGraw, and Lori Hadley, the city manager, and myself, and started touring him around. And he said, okay, I like this. This is a good proximity to Austin. I like being close to state capitals, where there's a lot of state agencies. He goes, but I got to look at every community in Central Texas. I'm like, geez, right? Now we're open to the competition again. So they tour around every community in Central Texas. All right, we won that one. He goes, you know what? I probably need to take a good look at San Antonio. Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? That's like the convention center attendant, right? Down there with the Riverwalk. And went down there, couldn't find anything. In fact, they thought San Antonio was oversaturated with the convention centers and other features of that stuff. So we felt good. And then they said, okay, well, we probably need to look at the Dallas area. I was like, I'm okay with that. I'm a Dallas boy, born and raised. I'm okay with that, just as long as they don't go up to Frisco. Yep. Lo and behold, it came down to Round Rock and Frisco. And I will tell you, the way we approach projects is a lot different than Frisco. Nothing against Frisco. They're a fine group of people. That's a fine community. We sell them on Round Rock and the people of Round Rock. One of the initial sales pitches that we did for that Kalahari group was in the backyard of Niall Maxwell's house. And we had Niall and Mayor McGraw doing a tandem sales pitch. We had poster boards up in the backyard showing how their property could lay out in Round Rock. We had demographic circles to show them that if they came here, you'd pick up Houston, San Antonio, and Dallas. If you're up in Frisco, You get a little bit of San Antonio, a little bit of Houston, and you get Oklahoma City. Well, demographic-wise, we win that battle. And so that was, we sold them on that partnership, being part of the family. And Niall did a great job selling from his side. Mayor McGraw did a great job selling from his side. And so we just kept moving along, kept moving along with the project. Then they opened up, they had a great opening of their third resort up in the Poconos. Beautiful resort area. And they're doing a great opening. We, the city manager, myself, and Mayor McGraw flew up there, and Jim Bowles. And the four of us flew up there, and they didn't know it. But we were there for the grand opening. Once again, to show them, we're serious about this. We're going to be good partners. And so we're sitting at dinner, and we called up Todd Nelson and said, "Hey, Todd, we're here. We're looking forward to your grand opening tomorrow. Tomorrow's good, 10 a.m. the next day." And Todd immediately called back and said, "Hey, get over here to the new Kalahari. We're going to have dinner over here." Blah, blah, blah. So we're having dinner the next morning. It's a big hoopla of the grand opening. And the reporters are there, "Hey, what's next for Kalahari?" And Todd looked over at us. He goes, "Go ask those four people. That's where the next Kalahari is." And we were like, in no position really to talk to anybody, especially the press. So we're just like, "Yeah, we're going this way. We're going to catch our flight." So we're out of there. But that kind of sent them a signal that we're in it, and we're in it here. I think they might have even made more money up in Frisco. Their incentives may have been greater in Frisco, but they loved the business climate here. They loved the council and the staff. What people need to understand is the city manager had a brilliant idea, and she sent all the city council and all department level directors of city staff up to Kalahari. There was probably 5 or 6 different trips that went up there.
And all the council members went separately. There was no violation of community.
No quorum.
No
No
open records.
It was like two at a time. There were 2 at a time. So everybody could understand, because what you can't comprehend until you see it is this is a 975 hotel room hotel. 975 rooms. I think the Marriott's around 300, 280, 300. Right, this is 975. This is a 200,000 square foot convention center. The Marriott meeting space is about 15,000. It's 200,000 square feet. This will be the second largest convention center space in Central Texas to the Austin Convention Center. Then you're going to add in a 200,000 square foot indoor water park. Man, that is fun stuff. That's going to be the largest indoor water park in North America, and maybe even in the world. Then you're going to add in a 100,000 square foot indoor family fun center. And this is pretty cool. The facility they have in Wisconsin has an inside Ferris wheel, has an indoor go-kart track. You don't even hear any noise when you go outside. Everything is enclosed inside. And so it really is going to generate a lot of visitors to our community and a lot of property tax, a lot of sales tax. I think you're going to see a lot of businesses just explode with this. It's going right across the street from the Dell Diamond. So you can imagine that's going to be like a little entertainment hub area there. They're going to have another 200 acres that they're not exactly sure what they're going to do with. They're still working on those plans, but it's going to complement that family resort project. And what they like to do is, if I have a convention that I'm going to Kalahari, and my family, this is my son, Cole, he's my youngest, I have 3. And so I know if I'm going to Kalahari, I'm going to have to take the 3 kids and my wife. So what they like to do, what they like to say is they like to keep the suits away from the suits. So the business suits are over here at the convention center, and the aquatics are going to be over here, so they don't mix and match. They're really well planned on how they do that. They're going to have 5 restaurants. Now they're going to have 24 restaurant/bar situations. They're going to have some man-made lakes in there. It's really going to be just a beautiful project. This is going to be their #1 resort in the entire Kalahari family, and they're just super excited to be here. The way the incentives are coming down are the city is putting out some money to help build the convention center, and how the incentives are going to be working. There's going to be for lack of a better term, a pot of money, and there's going to be city sales tax, That 1% that goes to the general fund, nothing that has to do with property tax reduction or the type B that funds transportation. That is not allowed. So just the 1% that goes to the general fund. Then the city property tax, the city hotel motel tax, not the Brimer that pays the sports center, only the hotel motel tax that the visitors pay. And then our tremendous state rep, Larry Gonzalez, got us part of a bill that allows us to use for 10 years the state hotel motel tax and the state sales tax for this project. That is probably $50 to $60 million over the 10 years, first 10 years. It's huge. So what's going to happen? All that money is going to come into a pot. I'm simplifying it, and all this is on the city website if you want more details. But what's going to be paid first is the debt for the convention center and any other infrastructure we got to put in. That debt gets paid first out of all the revenue that's coming in, all the tax revenue. Then the next thing gets paid is make sure that we have the debt coverage payment that the finance department requires on every debt deal that the city ever does. You know, there's a debt coverage of, I think, 125%. And then after that, then there's a revenue share between the developer and the city. And so before anybody gets any share of revenue, the debt gets paid for. And we still believe that the city in the first year is going to get several millions of dollars new into the coffers to help lower your taxes, to keep them low, and also give you new services. You know, our main job in my department is to diversify the economy and create good jobs. Well, in the last 5 years, when we make an announcement on July 13th, we will have announced or created over $1 billion of capital investment in Round Rock and have announced or created over 9,000 jobs. And so we're very excited about the future of Round Rock. We're excited to share this story. We could not do it without our partners at the city. And Brad Weissman is the top, the best planning development director you'll ever meet in the country. I've worked in 3 cities and I've met several other planning departments. Usually Brad and our positions clash all the time. And because, I don't know, I get a reputation being yes, 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 and he gets a reputation of no, no, no. Well, in this one, it's really equal, where I say no to some of this crazy stuff that we hear, and Brad, he doesn't just say no, he says no, but what if we do it this way? And he tries to work with the development community to see how we can get it done. Because we can't bring these projects in here and start making money into the city. We don't make any money until those doors open. So we need to do our best to be responsible, get those doors open, but make sure they follow the city ordinances and state laws appropriately. So we're very excited about this project. It's going to add it's going to diversify our economy. We love Dell, but it is a little scary when, you know, Dell is your #1 taxpayer, your #1 employer, and everything is with Dell. I love Dell. They're a great partner to us too. But if we diversify the economy more, and we're less dependent on a big giant, then we'll be doing good. And Kalahari will be, I think they'll be #2 on the tax rolls, maybe even #1 when it's all said and done over Dell. And so that's a big coup for us to land Kalahari. Any questions over any of that? With that, I'll turn it over to Brad and let him talk about where they are in the process.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Brad Wiseman, Director of Planning and Development.
Just hang on to it.
I don't think he needs it.
Remember, we're recording every word you say.
Every word.
Yeah.
So my name's Brad Wiseman, Director of Planning and Development Services for the City of Round Rock. I've been in Round Rock for about 10 years, and just in that time, I've seen a lot of growth occur. Basically, what our department does is, like Ben was saying, we're working with the development community to bring good projects to the community that also meet the quality standards that the City Council has identified. We're in a growth spurt right now, obviously, and have been for quite some time. We're at about, population-wise, in the city limits, we're at about 108,000 right now. Somewhere around build-out, we expect to be somewhere around 250,000 people. So there's a lot more growth left to occur. We're probably less than half the way there if you believe that the 250 estimate. That's just the best guess at this standpoint. Majority of that's going to occur out in the northeast. That's where all the vacant land is. We do have some infill properties like where Kalahari's going. That's about 300 acres. But the majority is going to be out in the northeast and towards 130. Actually, Round Rock will eventually one day go on the other side of 130. There's actually land over there that eventually will be in the city limits at some point. To kind of put it into a little bit of perspective here, on average, the last few years, we've been doing about 500 single-family homes, probably around 600 or so new multifamily apartment units, around 200 million or so new, actually less than that if you take out the multifamily, but over 100 million of commercial-type projects, whether it's office, retail, all of that. So it's been pretty steady. Round Rock really grew its fastest in terms of single family back in the early 2000s. We were doing around 1,500 to 2,000 single family home permits a year, which is a tremendous amount of growth. So we're not doing that anymore. But we've still got the single family growth, and we've got all this other type of growth, whereas back then it was principally single family residential. And that's what we can do here at the city is to manage that growth effectively as possible. Through good land use controls, good development standards. But at the end of the day, everybody has a right to reasonable use of their property and reasonable development of the property. So we can't stop development, we can't stop the growth. What we can do is make sure that that's good growth, that it addresses impacts such as stormwater runoff, traffic impacts, drainage, those types of things, and then also that it's going to be a good quality product and a good quality building that's going to hold up over time. Kalahari currently is really early on, I would say, in the development process. So there's several steps you got to go through before you can get a permitting to actually go build a development. The first step is really what we call zoning, and that's the land use control. So zoning will say whether or not you can build commercial, residential, industrial, office, what have you. The property that Kalahari is going to be built on is currently, a majority of it was zoned planned unit development about 7 years or so ago. And it was zoned, PUD is a flexible zoning district, which allows some flexibility and negotiation between the developer and the city. The city can ask for things above and beyond the minimum standards, and the developer can ask for some breaks and things. So not even breaks on health and safety, but maybe landscape requirements, building materials, things like that. Life safety requirements are required across the board. So it was zoned to PUD and was zoned for a mixed-use type development, which already allowed a 15-story hotel. It allowed for some high-density multifamily, single-family, and commercial. Kind of like, think of it as like a mini domain of sorts. That was kind of the vision for that property that the original property owner had. They got the entitlements, which we call the zoning. They got the zoning approved about 7 years or so ago. And as they started to market it towards that type of developer, they couldn't get any traction. They couldn't get any interest. The mixed-use developers that they talked to just didn't think the market was there for something like that. So they put it back on the market. And when they put it back on the market, there's a bunch of different ideas and concepts came to the city of what could be the land. One of them, as Mayor Morgan referred to, was about 1,500 or so homes. I mean, there was two proposals before we even knew what Kalahari was to turn all that land into a straight single-family neighborhood on small to average-sized lots. We weren't really enthused about that just because of the amount of traffic that's going to generate. And really, traffic, what we're really focused on the most with traffic is the peak hour. The peak hour is the rush hour, 8 a.m. in the morning, 5 p.m. at night. There's nothing that creates really more peak hour traffic than single-family homes. So with the type of product that they were proposing at the time and the number of units that they were trying to get on the property, we weren't that enthused. We always saw that property as something being bigger and better. We didn't know what bigger and better was yet, because obviously the mixed-use project didn't work. But we were willing to wait it out a little bit, so we kindly told those developers, we really don't want that to be single-family. After that, then came along the idea of the Kalahari project, which that was all Ben White recruiting him to come through. So we think it's a much better fit. Is it going to create traffic? Yes, definitely will create traffic, but not the peak hour traffic that we're concerned about. Typically, if you're going to a resort, you're not going to go to a resort at 8 a.m. and you're not going to leave at 5 p.m. You're going to get there sometime midday. Check-in time is usually between noon and 3 at most places. You check in, and then you're there, and then typically you're going to stay there. So we think it's a really good fit from that standpoint. Obviously, with the property tax situation, a much better economic impact to the city than CDWs. Where it's at right now is it's beginning at the zoning process. So they're negotiating the plan unit development with the city right now. Once all that is worked through with the city staff, then it enters the formal type process where it goes for public hearings at the Planning and Zoning Commission and then the City Council. Staff's role is just to review it, get a good development, essentially what we feel is a good development. Take it to the Planning Commission, they'll review it, take a vote, and their vote is a lot like staff's in that it's an advisory vote. Council has the final say, they'll review it, and eventually take a vote on the zoning or whether or not they believe it to be a good solid development for the city of Round Rock. After the zoning, and actually let me back up a second, we did have 2 open houses that we had over in the Ridgeview Middle School. We invited the public there. Actually got a lot of good feedback. A lot of folks had some really good questions and concerns, and a lot of those concerns that we were able to address in the PUD and add some additional requirements to the outright project. Once the zoning takes place, which is probably going to be in another 3 months or so, I would say would be a good time frame, 3 or 4 months. So probably by October, the zoning will be done and at council for review and approval. Then after they get that, then they can get what we call the site development permit and the building permit. That's when we're reviewing the construction drawings. Our civil engineers, our planners, our landscape architects are going to review their plans, make sure it meets the requirements of the PUD. Our fire department will also be included in that review to make sure that it meets fire code, so it's going to be safe in the event they need to get in there for an emergency. So that all happened sometime right now based on the target schedule. Is they'll be under construction in mid-October, and we'll start the grading process. They expect it to be about a 2-year build time frame, so about 2 years from October, it could be reality, and they could be opening the doors. So it's pretty exciting. It's also daunting. It's a pretty complex project. Something that we've had a lot of long tenured employees. Our building inspections division, for example, we have many folks that have been probably on average, I think, is maybe somewhere between 15 and 20 years. So they've seen a lot in Round Rock, but they haven't seen a project such as this. So it's going to be exciting, and it's going to be really fun for us to work on. Hopefully, at the end of the day, it'll be something that everybody will be real proud of to have in Round Rock. That's about all I had. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
In that area, there is the Union Pacific Railroad that goes through there. We know along that approval process that it takes if changes need to be made because we're in the same type of area. How does that affect the company?
Sure, a great question. So early on in that process, we had our Director of Transportation, Gary Hutter, reach out to Union Pacific, and we were able to get a at-grade railroad crossing, a full at-grade railroad crossing on 79 that they've already blessed. So we don't believe that'll result in any delays. Basically, they were happy. There's a few railroad crossings out there right now that serve residential properties. And the way they view it is anytime they can get rid of crossings, they're happy, regardless of what the crossings are. So we were able to trade a couple of the residential crossings for one full-blown commercial type crossing to the project. So you'll be able to access it from 79 and also from Kenny Ford Boulevard, which will eventually extend all the way down to 45. And hopefully that can happen kind of in conjunction with this project. Yes, sir?
I've got a question. I was on the Chamber of Commerce board back in 94, 5. And I noticed one thing, and something I'd like to understand. Why is it that getting permits with the city of Round Rock is so efficient and Austin is so difficult?
The $1 million question.
And the camera's rolling, so.
Yeah, well, thank you for that.
Cut the camera for a minute.
That's a great compliment. I would say it's really a product of two things. To be fair to Austin, whenever you have a government that's large, it's like a big tanker ship in the night. It takes much longer for it to turn and make moves than it does for a smaller, more efficient government. But I would say that's part of it. But the other part of it is a culture. I mean, there's just a culture that we have in Round Rock, which is much different, I would say, from
It's kind of a can-do.
it's a can-do attitude, exactly. One of the things, one of the biggest frustrations you hear in Austin a lot of times is nobody's allowed to make a decision. I got to get blessing from like 20-some different departments. I mean, our staff's in power. What I always tell my staff is, I want you making the decision. I don't want if I got to make every decision in the department, then I'm not doing enough to develop you. That doesn't mean make a decision you're uncomfortable with. If you don't think you're unsure about it, well, don't make it. But all the decisions you're comfortable with, make them and move on down the road. If you do make a mistake, you'll learn from it and move on. So, I mean, our staff has some flexibility. We expect that out of them. And I think that's sometimes lost when you have a big bureaucracy where basically the staff knows what the right thing to do is. They can make that decision, but the system doesn't allow it. I appreciate that. Yes, ma'am?
How will that impact water? Obviously, a resort that size is going to consume a lot of water.
Sure.
I'm sure that's been looked at. Water, is not cheap.
No.
Since I've been turning on my irrigation system, I know.
No, what you mean. I guess.
Especially with our new tiered water rate, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Fortunately, we're getting some rains. It hasn't been that as bad.
Right.
But, yeah, it will consume a lot of water. But really, when you compare it to like if it was going to be again a single family or high density housing with washers and dryers moving all the time, it's really negligible. One of the things I was interested in was that I thought being an indoor water park it would consume a significant amount less than an outdoor water park, and really it doesn't. It definitely consumes less, but it still consumes a lot. The evaporation rate for an indoor water park is actually not a lot less than an outdoor, which I thought was impressive. But it will consume water, but our utilities, the director has been involved from day one, and there's plenty of water to serve the
Thank you.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. One thing on the,
Yes.
on the whole resort is that, one thing is that it's, all the local citizens can use the restaurants. I mean, they're opening it up to everybody. You do not have to be a guest at the resort, which is really nice. And so this is their most urban resort. As they mentioned earlier, they're family owned. There's, people in the family. It's the husband, the wife, and
They keep having babies.
4 or 5 kids, and that's how they want it. That's how they'll keep it. But so it's the most urban resort, so that's why they're doing more restaurants because they think they can appeal to that. Have people come in, kids. You take kids up there to use the water park. So this isn't just they're here and then you can't come see us. So that's really unusual for resorts. Usually it's only guests only. So anyway.
Thank you. All right, thank you guys. If you have any questions, you guys can hang around just 3 minutes. Okay. Couple of things wrapping up, and I'm going to share with you. I'm involved in some projects right now that involve the city of Austin, and I can tell you it is a challenge because, like I said, the culture is completely different. So, and it's hard to change that culture because that culture. When I first moved here, I lived in Austin, and I got out of there as fast as I could. So it took me about 4 years is all, but I was gone. So, let's see, I got here in '89, I think was when I got here. So I was done with Austin in 4 years, but it's just a different mindset and a different culture. And one of the things they hit the nail on the head is the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, and they can't make any decisions, and things just take forever. So, and we don't have that issue here. I can tell you, I get calls from you guys all the time. What about this? How about that? What's going on here? What can I do about this? I can pick up the phone and call any of these guys, any of the city council members, any department head, the city manager, assistant city manager, anybody, and I will get a call back. And I will get a call back fairly quickly with an answer to my question because they want to be responsive and help. And it's the same, that attitude goes all the way down when you start talking to the employees of the city and the chamber and all. It's amazing. And that's one of the reasons we have the great community that we have. And one of the things that you did mention, and Brad mentioned too, is the homes versus business part of that is, so we've got 1,500 homes here. And we pay a lot of property taxes here, but I promise you, that property tax we pay doesn't anywhere near cover the services we get from the city when it comes to roads, police, fire, maintenance, all that kind of stuff. So we're very diverse here. I also forgot early on, Nick Smith with Tiff's Treats brought us some goodies back there. So grab a cookie or two on your way out the door back there. Think about going to Tiff's Treats. They were just kind enough to call us up and say, hey, can we bring some goodies? So I've had them open, so all the calories have probably gone out of them by now. So you're probably okay there. So
Don't bring your dinner.
if there's no more questions anymore, all right. Well, thank you guys for coming, and we'll cut it loose. And you guys are taking this.